Recording in progress.
Hello there. Back in late July, I did a video about Robert Kennedy Jr., and I talked about how he might be the great disruptor, is what I called the video that went to my Patreon community. I have been asked by many people to release that to the public here on YouTube, and I will do that. But also, I'm going to do an intro to attach to the hour-long video on RFK's chart, how he intersects with Trump, what his role is, what the election might look like for him. And the thing I'm going to look at today is when he announced he was no longer going to keep on with his own campaign, but throw his hat into Trump's ring. We're going to look at the time of that announcement, which is 2 p.m. in the afternoon on Friday, the 23rd of the month of August. And that gives us a flavor of where the projectiles go, where this trajectory goes for him from changing his direction and what it might mean for him and the world as this election season is coming into place. Finally, I'm not Republican, Democratic. I am Canadian. I'm also very apolitical. This is astrology. I actually do like some of the things that RFK has to say, especially make America healthy again. You're even going to see how some of that make America healthy again is in the chart. So we're going to toddle over to the sky. This is only going to be about a 10-minute intro. And we're going to move into the back end of the pre-recorded hour-long video in which I go through many, many features. You can see them in the timestamps of RFK, Donald Trump, their intersection, the election in RFK, etc. And really that video done around July the 28th, maybe. It went to my Patreon community on July the 30th. I think some of it has come to pass already, but it's a deep dive that still is in play because the election hasn't happened yet. And as I'm recording this today and putting this video out for you the next day, I'm recording on August the 30th, a month after I made the original video. There's a lot of news that some states won't let him off the ballot. So RFK is trying to get in swing states off the ballot, not to disrupt the election for Trump. Well, I called that video at the end of July, RFK, the Great Disruptor. And that's how I named the whole file that it's in. So we'll see how much more disruption RFK offers to this election process. So RFK is in the middle, and that's his natal chart. And on the outside is the transits of August the 23rd, 2024, 2 p.m. Now, hang on a sec. I actually think the announcement was 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to edit that. And it's not going to matter so much. I know he may have been in Glendale, so that I'm not sure about that. So I'm going to move the chart ahead to Eastern time because it would be 1 p.m. in Glendale then. Arizona, what's the time zone difference, guys? I just realized that when I was waiting for it to come on, it said he will be announcing his stepping down at 2 p.m. Eastern Daily Time, and people were waiting for it to come on. So I'm going to set it for Eastern time. It doesn't matter where he's sitting. We'll make it Washington, D.C. And the reason it doesn't matter is I'm not looking at the midheaven ascendant. I'm just looking at the placement of the planets. Because that night he went to Glendale, Arizona and spoke with Trump on a stage. Okay, so it's more important, not so much Columbia. It just doesn't really matter as all much. We're just looking for planets, but at least I can get the time zone right on this, right? Okay. And let's just make sure that the thing is holding where it's supposed to be in District of Columbia, USA. Yes, and then we're going to go ahead and do what this means. District of Columbia. Yes, and if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Lori Lothian. I use the whole sign house system, fixed stars, and minor asteroids. If you like that kind of content and you'd like to be part of my channel, come aboard. Starting in September, I might be having a join button for some perks here on this YouTube place, but you can also find me on my Patreon community where they get everything early access, ad-free, and also 3 meetings a month with me. So check out Patreon, and my Sky Reader course is starting in the month of September, last weekend, 6 weeks of Be Your Own Astrologer, Time Your Best Life, learn how to do your own chart readings, and use timing tools for yourself. All right. So RFK Jr. in the middle. On the outside, the transit event. Now, just to remind you, this is his natal sky. He is a Leo rising, as you can see right here, Leo ascendant with Pluto in the first house. People project all over. People with Pluto above the ascendant, like on this side of the ascendant, so downside of the ascendant in the sublunar sphere, people project all over people like that. I mean, my son is one of them. If you have Pluto on this side of the ascendant heading down, then you're going to find that people love you or they hate you. They project a demonic weird shit all over you, or they really think you're a savior. That's the problem of people born with Pluto in this position. Okay. You radiate Plutonian energy. People don't know what to do with it. They're either going to like love you or hate you. There's never anything in the middle here. So even his own family turns against him, right? Pluto is difficult in this position, especially retrograde, moving towards his ascendant when he was born. Now, he's facing death head on, basically. He lost his uncle. He lost his father to assassinations. He's born to face death head on. All right, minder, he's got his Mercury here, and it was, Mercury, it's almost there. There's his sun at 27, Mercury at 29. Pluto on September 1st retrograded into the sign of Capricorn and hit his Mercury. But Pluto was in orbit of his Mercury when he made the announcement, but not by sign. So you can say September the 1st through to November 19th, RFK has Pluto retrograde and turning around October 11th direct on his Mercury next to his sun. That Mercury is deeply, deeply combust and it's burning up under the beams of the sun. It's not always a bad thing to have that. It means his mind and his soul are at one. They're connected completely, but sometimes it can be difficulty in communications in some way. Of course, I have similar state. I'm a similar one. I'm under the beams with my Mercury, but I mean, he definitely, his speech his voice is troubled, right, by that raspy voice. And so you could even go with that. So Pluto is going to back over his communications god in his house of service and work next to his sun, his career and purpose and soul. Like that's a lot of energy because his sun will pick up those Plutonian rays. And so he's going through a very profound time, very profound energetic intensity as Pluto finishes a 16-year stay in his sixth house. And over the pandemic timeframe, when he became medical freedom and safe vaccine voice for the world, or at least for America, and began to look at health protocols around vaccine safety and also medical freedom to choose, all of his advocacy garnered him a huge audience. And that's very much to me all about that Pluto transit over Sun Mercury from 2020 pandemic beginning until now. And that has given him the audience and following that he has at this point. He's also, of course, about make America healthy again, because he believes Americans are being poisoned by their own crop system and greed and pharmaceutical industry and all of that. So it's just an interesting position for Mercury, because Mercury is in the sign of sickness. His sun is in the sign of sickness. Venus is in the sign of sickness. North Node is in the sign of sickness, and Chiron, the healer, which is also an alternate to allopathic healing. Chiron is usually your chiropractor, your healers of, acupuncture and stuff. He literally has a stellium in a health house, right? So of course the guy is going to be concerned with matters to do with health. There's also an asteroid that's worth drawing in here. So let's put in Hygeia, because she's also about health. I'm going to bring that into what his announcement was about, because a lot of people think that he just basically, was, just wanted to be in power no matter what. And he kind of tossed everybody to the curb, all the people to the curb who supported him, who were willing to go to bat for him. And I don't see it that way myself. I think if you don't have a seat at the table, so to speak, if you don't have a seat at the table, you've got no power. So he wanted to have a seat at the table, and he chose Trump's table instead of the Biden Kamala admin. And that's probably because they totally suppressed him getting any kind of ability to run in the primaries, or anyone to run in the primaries against Biden, right? He was just shooed in there as a senile puppet of some sort. So here we have it, RFK Jr.'s chart. And I put the Hygeia asteroid in there because this is about doctors and nurses and health matters. And Hygeia, the goddess of also preventative medicine, right, is sitting on a south node Uranus moon in ostensibly a house that has to do with his deepest unconscious impulses, perhaps even his past lives. That is a moon that is in her kingdom. That is Uranus for cutting edge and outside the box, medical stories, past life, or spiritual energy coming from that. So the man comes by this authentically. This is not find a cause a minute, and he's a movement maker. Anytime you see Jupiter in somebody's 11th house, they can be popular with the people for sure and have large group influence, but they're also Maria Montessori is a movement maker, a new educational system. I think Martin Luther King was Jupiter midheaven in the 11th. He is a movement maker for civil rights. So you're going to see people who want to be making a movement happen. That's the vibe of his Jupiter in the 11th. Just keep that in mind when I show you the outside sky, because by throwing his hat into the ring with Donald Trump, he is either still the great disruptor, because if he can't get his name off the swing state ballots, he still can disrupt the election, and maybe neither Trump nor Harris get 270 electoral votes. And there is a possibility of that still happening. That's going to really disrupt the election results and throw it to the Senate and Congress to choose people and voting system within Senate and Congress. And the other thing that could happen here is that Trump doesn't stick in the race anyway. And people have asked, well, if Trump bails, which is possible, if Trump bails because he's sick or something, which is possible with his chart, what would happen to RFK and, of course, JD Vance? Would JD Vance still be able to be the presidential candidate, a VP candidate, because he was nominated as part of a ticket, not as a solo? Does anyone know the answer? Want to put that in the comments? Or would that whole ticket collapse, and then the Republican people, the delegates, would scramble for a fast online vote to find out who they wanted next? And would they grab RFK, or would they grab Nikki Haley, or would they grab Tulsi Gabbard? I always said Tulsi Gabbard would make a really great broadcaster, and she's doing really well in the interview I saw her do with Trump. She brings him back on task. And also in a thing called Cartology, she is his karma cousin. And I just read that. Thank you for someone who sent that to me. And in Cartology, as his karma cousin, she owes him something in this lifetime. And so she's paying a karmic debt by being on Team Trump. Just saying, according to cardologists. Now, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to throw up the sky at the time that he said, I'm out of here. I'm going to go with, step down. I don't want to be a spoiler for the election. And as I said, if he just walked away and did nothing, he wants to make America healthy again. He wants to put in better protocols for the environment. He can't do that unless he's in the system itself. And so because he couldn't break the system, he's trying to do it from within the system, but maybe you never know, he still may break the system. So here's his chart. A lot of people call him an opportunist. He may be, but he's also authentically interested in wellness. He's authentically interested in health. A lot of you know he kicked alcohol. And if you wanted to see that in this chart, there's an asteroid Bacchus that's often connected to people who have an inordinate fondness for alcohol. Bacchus is the god, like Dionysus, of the fermented beverage. And so if we put Bacchus in here, who was known for orgies, by the way, and decadence and drunkenness, and we can put Dionysius in as well, and Bacchus, what do we get in terms of his whole picture on the alcohol story? Kamala Harris has Bacchus pretty close to her Venus in Virgo, fallen in the 4th house. And I don't say that she has a drinking problem. Please don't quote me on that. How would I know? Astrology suggests she might like to drink at home, maybe just like a glass of wine with dinner. All right. Just letting you know, these things are just astrology placements. So outside wheel is the transits, inside wheel is him. Let's just see together before we finish this quickie intro up, where the heck does it fall? Where is it that he has his Bacchus and his Dionysius for alcohol problems or drunken problems or addictions? There's Dionysius conjunct his ascendant. He comes by it honestly, and it comes from a past life because it's above the ascendant. It's prenatal. It could be family of origin issues, and it comes into this life with him. He has a tendency to be Dionysian, Bacchanalian. He might want to have an orgy, go over the top, get into states of ecstasy, drink way too much wine, find ecstatic states of revelry. Healthy ways to do that. Maybe trance dancing, Sufi dancing, religious trance states, sure, but we can also use substances. So he has a tendency for that. He comes by it honestly. And then here he has Bacchus, the god of wine, Roman god of wine, in his 6th house of sickness and health. And so obviously he cares about sobriety and health, and he is a recovered alcoholic, and he makes no secret about it. So we see that those stories are obviously true about who he is. That just goes to prove to you how asteroids work. He's born with his midheaven natally on Phaethon. Phaethon. I'm going to read Phaethon to you. And he has Apollo Zeus in his house Apollo, Zeus in his seventh house of significant other people. Zeus and Apollo are sun god. I mean, not Apollo. I apologize. Zeus, it is Apollo. Zeus and Apollo, sun god Apollo. Zeus, of course, king of Mount Olympus in his house of other people. So he's teaming up with Trump, a former president. You know, he almost looks like good VP territory to my eye, more than presidential, given he's got his midheaven in the ninth house. And the ninth house is the hand of the king, the one that helps the king or the queen. So, or the scribes, advisors, magician, priest to the king. And so he's better off as a hand of a king. He's a little bit like a Jimmy Carter chart. He looks like he'd be a good, noble, what do you call it? Coming from a noble intention, but not cut out from the cloth of kings. Okay. That's my take on his chart, just so you know. Now, what about the natal? Because I'm going to bring these into the sky when he stepped away. What about the natal Phaethon? Let me read Phaethon to you. It's a new asteroid or celestial body that I haven't been using. So it's because, yay, thank you. I really enjoy the fact that finally Astro Gold, which is my software, upgraded us to allow us to use that asteroid and many, many others that were not available on my software. And that is now, hallelujah, in the mix. Yeah, he's also got Jupiter, Zeus, I mean, in his seventh house conjunct Panacea, the remedy for everything, including medical remedies. So you really see a lot of this stuff in the chart that indicates he's an honest broker when it comes to wanting to make America healthy again. And he's an honest broker because he even has his Saturn conjunct the asteroid Asclepia, the god of healing. I can't put all these asteroids in here. We'll be here for 1,000 years. You know, we really will be. So let me get Phaethon in here. I'm just trying to find where it is in the back end to read it to you. And I know it's a good story. That's why I put it in there. I thought, oh, that really fits him. That is seemingly what he's about. All righty. Where are you, Phaethon? Just when you need to pull it out of the back end, it doesn't exist, but I know it's there. Okay, one more try. And if I can't find, I'll just pause the recording, come back with it. Sorry, guys. Yeah, you know, I know it's there. So I'll be right back. Okay, so let me talk Phaethon with you guys. All right. All right, so he's got it on his midheaven, Aries ninth house. It's asteroid 3200, son of the Greek god Helios. He operated the solar chariot for a day, lost control of the chariot, and almost set fire to the earth, then moves too far and almost freezes it, killed by lightning bolts from Zeus, reckless, feeling out of control, or you've taken on more than you can handle, trouble keeping to the middle of the road. I thought that was interesting because, you know, he tried to create a new road, right? A road called a third party and we the people, and it didn't work out. I mean, he was feeling perhaps at the end out of control or taken on more than he could handle. He's either going to burn up or freeze, go with the Democrats, go with the Republicans. Well, you can't win, right? So he couldn't stay on a middle of the road. And he, as the son of a Greek god Helios, with a solar chariot for leadership, lost control of his chariot and either could have set fire to the earth or moved too far and frozen to death. And in the meantime, it looks like that's the kind of career story he has in general, right? It's going to target his midheaven for his entire life. Now, let's just get this little peek at the sky done, and then you can go listen to the long video about is he the great disruptor? That was the name of the video. Can't make this stuff up. That's not the chart I was using, but it'll do. It's the same one. So let's put the other chart over it. The asteroid up here, I put it there for a reason. He's got the asteroid Arawn. Oh no, that's another one. Where is Arawn? Arawn is in a very important place as well. Arawn. In the house of what you put in your mouth is Arawn, the god of good and healthy food. You know, I'm not kidding you. In the house of what you put in your mouth in his natal chart is Arawn, the god of good and healthy food. You know, you cannot make this stuff up. His whole shtick is the poison food supply in America. So, and the lack of health and you know, feeding kids in schools like processed foods, and parents not having money to feed their kids, so letting the schools feed their kids processed food. And so Arawn, if you want to hear it, is the Welsh king of the other world, the realm of Anwin, the world of delights, eternal youth. And look at him. He's got a six-pack set of abs, the RFK guy, and he's old. Eternal youth, absence of disease, abundant food, and a kind paradise or heaven, awareness of mortality, and the desire to explore the larger picture beyond limitations of one's own life, a longing for a better place. So I'm just going to say, at the end of the day, this is a guy that is actually what he seems to be. You're all looking for nefarious stuff about him, like his true motives, opportunists, goes with the winds. I don't see it that way, not with this chart. So the transits of the day at 2 p.m. when the scheduled announcement was he was going to step down, and I know it was on around 2 p.m. because around 11:10 I could see he was talking. I was recording a video, something like that. So the gist of it is this: don't worry so much about the exact time. Where were the planets? Where were the asteroids? What does it mean for him in general? Well, one thing it means that he stepped down. And he said he was leaving the whole storyline when transiting Mercury was crossing over his Pluto. Now, Mercury is the announcements that we make, and Pluto is the end of something, the death of something. So he's announcing, I'm done. My candidacy is no longer going to happen. And it's Mercury retrograde, which means he's already thought about it. Mercury had been retrograding over Pluto, and before that, over Pluto in direct motion back in probably early August or late July. Basically, he's been thinking about this for a bit of time. No, actually, it would have been pretty quick succession. When like mid to end of August, he was already thinking of stepping down. Now, Mercury is in a position here where he's saying something along the lines of, I've been thinking about this for a while, and I'm going to make an announcement. That's basically what that is indicating right there. And if I remember correctly, that could be the stationary turnaround degree for Mercury at the retrograde. Mercury turned around from retrogradation on the 28th. I don't know if that's still the same degree. Let me take a look. Just bear with me. I'm going to go ahead. Mercury turned around at 21 degrees. So Mercury was moving so slow. He was barely mobile. And a lot of power, a lot of proximity to Earth from our vantage point, a lot of intensity on Pluto in the first house of RFK. So there's the announcement. There's him saying, hey guys, we got to get out of here. This isn't working. Got to get a seat at somebody else's table, and explaining why. Now, the media is not fair to him. CNN cut him off as soon as he started saying something negative about Kamala Harris. Like, I've never been a big buy-in for fake news or media is all slanted to Democrat or one way or the other. But if you watch Fox News, which I actually do, and then I watch CNN, I see Fox News is the arm of the Republican Party and CNN is an arm of the Democratic Party. There's no longer independent media unless you go to independent media sources online like YouTube where they're not in broadcast mode. That's my opinion. Even then, if they're not independent and they're biased, they let you know they're biased. The other thing I want to say is Chiron has been transiting over his midheaven, and there was an eclipse here. And I mentioned this probably in my other video, but you can also see that at the time that he was announcing his step down, we have this Chiron and of course, Phaethon energy being activated by retrograde Chiron moving towards his midheaven at 19 Aries. That's exactly the degree of the eclipse of April the 8th. I covered that in my other video, conjunct Chiron, a major wound or a major eclipsing of some career ambition. Obviously, we know what that is at this juncture. Does it mean it's forever? Maybe it's going to turn around. We'll see. Finally, he was born with that movement maker Jupiter here. And you can see at the time he stepped down, he's having his Jupiter return. It would be maybe exact 4 days beforehand to the minute, but Jupiter returns are important. And he's literally just in the wake of a Jupiter return that sets his life in a new direction for the next 12 years. So he made the announcement on the auspicious energy of a Jupiter return that sets his life forward in the next 12 years. And when Jupiter was in the Jupiter return mode, look who Jupiter was hanging out with. Okay. Really, look who Jupiter's hanging out with. Jupiter is hanging out with the asteroids here. This little baby is the one that's the sun god chariot driver guy, who fell from the sky, that's on his midheaven, didn't fall from the sky, almost scorched the earth or could have frozen in the icy realms and couldn't find the middle ground. So Jupiter is with the same asteroid that's on his midheaven. Now, I didn't cover this little asteroid that looks like a flower, but it's with Mars. And I cannot pronounce the name, but it's a goddess who is about revenge and protection of one's home and homeland. And that asteroid of revenge and protection for home and homeland is on Mars. He's making an announcement that he cares more about America than his own political career. Revenge or protection of homeland, wants to protect the citizens of his homeland from medical problems, health problems, and environmental problems. So he comes by it honestly, that asteroids with his midheaven as well. So you can see, it looks to me like because of the Jupiter return, at the end of the day, he made the right decision. It's almost like anything you're going to do under a Jupiter return, yay you. Arawn, the good food, the healthy, the eternal youth, that beautiful positive Arawn that I already read is here at 27 degrees of Capricorn at the time of his announcement, co-joint exactly with his sun, He made a decision from a deep, soulful place within himself, and that decision was authentic. According to Jupiter, it was right. And it is, because it was made under the Jupiter return, a great blessing, and it will bring good things to him and the world. And if I was to look at his Jupiter return, which I don't have time for, it might give me more clues as to why it was so important. But he was moving in alignment with his natal plan. He's truly what he seems. He is concerned about things to do that he says he's concerned about. There's never someone driven for political power with their sun in the 6th house and their midheaven in the 9th. This is not the chart of some ambitious power grabber. And what does an opportunist mean anyway? Yeah, you take opportunity when it shows up. I mean, that's a slur, but it shouldn't be. And I don't know why people use it for him. I'd love to, if anyone in my comments does human design. By the way, he's a diamond. He's a jack of diamonds in cardology. They're kind of the wheeler dealers and salesmen. And I think that could give him a slight, everyone thinks he's sly, the jack of diamonds, I believe, is his cardology card. But if you are a human design person and you're listening, do you know his human design? Because some human designs have the word opportunist embedded in them. Okay, so like, you could be a 4-2 and you're an opportunist hermit or something like that. So check that out. If you're in human design land, do you know at all what his human design is? Kamala Harris has the word opportunist in her human design. She, I think, is an opportunist hermit, according to a human design person that told me that during a class I was teaching. If you know RFK's human design, it's not hard to figure out, but I don't do it. Let me know. Now, part 2, which is about 1 hour and 15 minutes, is for you astrology geeks, but there's timestamps. You can jump ahead to Trump's chart with RFK, the election in RFK's chart, what my long views are. Timestamps give you the themes I'm covering as I record that video, probably the 28th of November. No, the 28th of July, before the DNC, and my Patreon community got it. If you're a part of my Patreon community, you get stuff over there that I don't put in the public, right? But people have asked me to, in my comments, to put it out. So here it goes. So it's going out on Saturday. These sync in the algorithm. Please like, subscribe, and share it, because it is an algorithmic damage to my channel every time I put out an election video. I'm not kidding you, because algorithmic sinkholes are election content on my channel for some reason. All right, ciao, ciao. Bye-bye. And no, it's not because I'm biased. All right. See you later. Bye. So today's video is about Robert Francis Kennedy, RFK Jr., and we're talking about the election of 2024. Is Robert Kennedy Jr. a spoiler? Will he disrupt the election that is currently, as I record on July the 30th, ostensibly between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump? There is a good chance, given the astrology of RFK, that he's more than just an interesting and somewhat intelligent lawyer and somebody who brings new energy to the table. He has some elements in his chart that do portend his rise to some sort of power. It may not be the presidency, but it may be the power to disrupt an election year in the lineup of disruptions behind us. The Gore versus Bush election that took forever to figure out who won was also complicated by Ralph Nader running as an independent, causing the votes of Florida to be dispersed in such a way that it was hairline close in that election between Gore and Bush for the electoral votes of the state of Florida. So I see maybe the spoiler element here, or the disruptor element in Robert Kennedy Jr.'s run for office. He does have 29 states in which he has put his new political power, political entity, like, the the thing he's created called We the People. He's on the ballot in 29 states, some of them highly contestable, like North Carolina, where the Democrats and the Republicans are going head to head. So let's talk about his chart. I'm going to show you the pictures of it. I'm going to dive a little bit into his relationship to his father, the death of his father when he was 14, and the death of his uncle, JFK, when he was 9. I want to look at how that might have impacted him. I want to talk a bit about who this man actually is based on his astrology, but also where this man is going, because he does have some extraordinary, powerful things going on in his chart with the real-time sky flowing in certain ways to his natal chart that suggests he's not going to go into that good night gently. He's going to be sticking around over the next couple of years and making a difference in the political landscape of the United States of America, to my surprise. Because I thought, oh, well, he's just a third-party candidate. He's got some great points, but you know what can a third-party candidate do in a system that's basically a two-party system in the United States elections? Okay, we're starting on this today as my first of a series of videos on the election. Well, not the first. Go back and watch my video in which I discussed the Trump assassination. Go back and watch the video dedicated to Joe Biden and his health and why he may step down. Of course, he did, but that video was created before he did step down. And, I did also say in one of my videos, or two, the Venus and Leo video, also the Uranus conjunction to Mars on Algol, that Trump was facing harm's way. I included the word assassination. I included the dates in which his harm's way assassination attempt may occur. This is because it's not about me being great. Other astrologers were calling it as well. It is because astrology is a divinatory tool. It's made for predictions, and it's often quite accurate, at least in broad brushstrokes, sometimes very specifically. So we're going to talk now about Robert Francis Kennedy Jr., born in 1954 on January the 17th at 5:32 p.m. in Washington, D.C. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Lori Lothian. I'm neither a Democrat nor a Republican. I live in Canada. I have not voted once in a municipal or state or provincial election or federal election within my own country. And although, yes, I did live in the United States for several years, about 18 years, I did not vote. I was not a citizen. I was on a particular visa. So there we get that out of the way. You don't have to troll me about my politics. This is called astrology, and it's mundane, which is about world events. If you like your all signs astrology for everything else, new moons, full moons, eclipses, the monthly astrology just for your sign, that content is also on my channel. I put out about 20 to 30 videos every single month. Most of it is all sign. In an election year, I always run a series of election videos. So this is one of those. If you're into the mundane world stuff, stick around, get more of this content here today in this video. Otherwise, subscribe, like, hit the notification bell, and you'll get my general content. My Sky Reader class is starting in mid-September, 6 weeks of learning live how to be your own astrologer, time your best life. If you want to learn how to do that for yourself and read your own chart, please jump aboard my class. The enrollment cart is not yet open. It will open early in August, but right now, the tuition cart, you can get on the wait list for early bird discounts. To get on the wait list, hit the More button under my video. Scroll down. Free gifts, where my website is, things I'm up to, my half-price summer sale on 2024 all signs readings. Each sign is only $14. It's a 90-minute private video that has never been public, me talking to you about your sign in 2024. Still half a year left. You may as well grab it. Everything in my description box. Let's get rolling, and let's look at the sky of Robert Kennedy Jr. and what this fella might be up to as a spoiler or a disruptor of the current election in the United States of America. Now you'll notice that he has a Leo rising, and that is interesting because, of course, so does Donald Trump. And Donald Trump's rising is way down the pipeline at the end of this sign. As this election was progressing and it was a Biden-Harris ticket, a lot of money was being sent to RFK, Robert Kennedy, apparently, says the chatter, by the Trump campaign fund slush pile team in order to disrupt the election by taking Democratic votes away from Joe Biden. That is a story. Is it true? I don't know. That's in the news cycle. The point is that because RFK is anti-vaccine, he could also take not anti-vaccine, anti-unsafe, ineffective, untested vaccine, okay? Because that is a stance that's often shared by Republicans, then he can also take votes away from Republicans. And there's a part of his environmental stance, which is extremely strong, right? That would take votes away from when Harris was the ticket Biden, because he'd be stronger on the environment, pulling Democratic third-party votes, and stronger on vaccine regulation and oversight. And that would lead to leaking votes from both parties. Now, things have changed a bit. Biden is no longer on the head of this ticket. It looks like it's Kamala, although there is still the Democratic National Convention ahead of us. That said, he still has the strength to pull from both of those directions. Well, Kamala at this point is getting a surge of exciting popularity amongst Gen Z females, according to my Gen Z daughter, or whatever, women love her who are young as the storyline. She's also pulling a lot of new exciting votes from women in general who would like to see finally a female president of the United States of America. So some of the equation of where he could disrupt the election may have shifted. Now let's talk about his chart. As I said, he's a Leo rising. He's born to be a leader, Leo, a performer, have a big heart, to be bold and courageous. Good old stories that we give to any lion or man or woman, lioness. And his midheaven or his career point is in Aries. A lot of you, I apologize for that sound. Let me turn off my sound. A lot of you understand that this is a very critical part of the chart. This is where we had the eclipse, 19 degrees of Aries on April the 8th, 2024. That is an eclipse. It was perfectly conjunct Chiron, the wounded healer. I wonder what it means that he has an eclipse on his high noon of reputation and career, meaning a portal of dramatic change, North Node, turn the volume up, Chiron, the wounded one. I will ponder that as we go through the chart and compare it to election day and other variables in the sky. Now, what I would like to say now is this. I'm going to just make sure that we get the gist of an eclipse on the midheaven. We've got that under our buckle belts, right? That happened. X marks the spot through Texas. That Aries eclipse went through Texas. The Libra eclipse in the fall went through Texas. Texas is also where his uncle was killed, right? So we have a lot going on with the sort of the South. And we also have a lot going on with his midheaven. His midheaven here at 19 degrees of Aries suggests that because of the eclipse being exactly on there, there's major changes in his role in the world. His role in the world is to campaign right now. He's a lawyer. He's an advocate for vaccine safety. He's an advocate for the environment. But at this juncture, his role is to campaign. A major change in his role is to actually have a job. And that eclipse, excuse the sound out there, that eclipse is playing out in this chart until next spring. So over the course of that election energy, he's still in the aftermath of a major energetic field of energy on his midheaven. And you can see as well that his sun is Capricorn, 27 degrees. A lot of you recognize, because a lot of you are astrologically literate, that he had a Pluto activation there for the last 5 or 6 years, as Pluto was moving very slowly over his sun. And that included the pandemic era, and very much could simply indicate that during the pandemic era, he was moving into a time of increased power, Pluto, sun, and transformation of what he thought his solar role, his leader role, his career role would be in the world. In the astrology of the sixth house, he's here to be of service. And I'm going to close that window. Give me a minute. That wind is really, that sound is really loud. Okay, he's here to be of service. The sixth house is I'm here to be of service. It's that simple. Usually it's to pay off karmic debts and receive the rewards of the 11th house. His 11th house has got Jupiter in it. He's a movement maker. Who has had movement maker Jupiter in the 11th house? If my memory serves me, Montessori woman, Maria Montessori, created a whole new educational system. Martin Luther King, a whole new, civil rights movement born out of these movement makers. When you are born with Jupiter in the house of his joy in the 11th house, you are in some way a movement maker. And we see that he is indeed collectively inspiring many people, groups of people, 11th house, in something that's about noble truth and wisdom and hope and optimism and faith, Jupiter. Back in 1968, when his father, Robert, was killed, assassinated, and Martin Luther King, we were also experiencing eclipses here over the midheaven area of Robert Kennedy's chart and his dad was killed. Those eclipses with Chiron in Aries also corresponded not only to student protests and riots and big energy of disconnection of people from a war the United States was waging, which was the Vietnam War. Now it has been the Israel-Gaza student protests, but it also was a time in 1968 with the Chiron North Node eclipses that, as I mentioned, the incumbent president was running for second term. He stepped down, Lyndon Baines Johnson, and decided to step away from running for the election, just like Joe Biden did, which is why I said ages ago, starting in March, Joe Biden will step down. Before we all saw how his cognitive health was in great decline, that was still a likely thing that would occur. I thought it would be for health reasons of some sort. And so life is repeating itself in an eerie way, the cycles of the sky. And here we have a time in history where we're coming full circle for the candidate Robert Kennedy Jr., full circle to the time where to a time in 1968 where his father was assassinated. We also saw, of course, the theme of assassination repeat again with an attempt on Donald Trump's life. So, assassination, student protest, incumbent president stepping away from re-election, at the last minute. These themes are just like insanely eerily repeating. I see major newscasters saying that now. This is like 1968. I said since 1968, back in February, March, and April, this election year will have eerie repeats. Okay, so what else can we talk about Kennedy? I would note this. This is his natal Jupiter. And when you see that natal Jupiter sextiling the midheaven, he has luck and goodness and a fairy godfather supporting him to succeed in his career. So when that eclipse occurred here on April the 8th at 19 degrees, it was being supported by his natal Jupiter. But we want to add some juice to the mix. Jupiter is currently moving through the sign of Gemini, and that's going to give him a Jupiter return, which we'll look at, but also super support him in this time frame as we build toward the election. Because unlike Kamala Harris and unlike Donald Trump, who also have very strong placements in Gemini, it is the sun that belongs to Donald Trump. Memory serves me, maybe around 21 or 22 degrees of Gemini, and the ascendant of Kamala Harris around 24 degrees of Gemini, that are getting Jupiter glow ups. But, and this is the big but, Jupiter turns retrograde before it reaches Kamala Harris's 24-degree Gemini ascendant, and it turns retrograde before it reaches Donald Trump's sun. And that's a refrenation. That's coming close, and going, not quite. I'm going to kiss you and I'm going to go back and up. I'll come back later for that kiss. That refraining from contact means that if they're going to be coordinated king or leader, Jupiter on Trump's sun, Jupiter on Kamala's ascendant, Jupiter gets close and backs up and says, wait a minute, let's think about this. Why? And this is happening during the election. Why? Because I think there's a disruptor like Gore, Bush, counting the hanging chads all over again. And the only thing I can think that can disrupt the election other than a massive war terrorist type event, which I'm not sure that it's going to be, is the influence of someone like Robert F. Francis Kennedy, Robert F. Jr., because he may disrupt the votes in a swing state, where now the votes have to be counted, or he gets the swing state and it's like so close between so Harris and Trump, if those are the last two standing, still a possibility some changes there, but the last two candidates standing, the election disruption caused by a strong third candidate, spoiler, maybe what we're seeing with the reason RFK's chart looks so positive. So back to this Jupiter story. Let me show you the sky. I'm going to clear this and clear the drawings to make it clean and simple for you. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put the transit chart in place. And I want you to just think about the real-time sky. We're going to talk also about Robert Kennedy's profection age and his solar return chart. I may go deeper into his distributions through the bounds. It depends on how much time I have here, like in my recording day, because these videos standalone don't do nearly as well, by the way, as my regular all signs personal content. So I don't want to, spend forever on these election videos, but I do know that a lot of you like them. By the way, please know that I am not political. I hate having to remind you guys of that. It's just annoyingly exhausting to be trolled in the comments by all of you people who imagine somehow I'm pro-Trump or pro-Biden or pro-Harris or pro whatever. And not, got the wrong girl. It's called astrology. Okay, here we have the sky. I'm going to put the transit chart on the outside wheel. And you can see that Jupiter is here. You'll note that Robert Kennedy is born with, and when his dad died and all that. Let's get to that. On the perfection ages, I'll get to that. He was born with a Jupiter retrograde. Do you know Elizabeth Taylor had a Jupiter retrograde? Do you know that people with the Jupiter retrograde will become spiritually inclined in their life, find God, find a spiritual religious path? Okay, so he does. I believe he's devoutly Catholic. But if you're born with Jupiter retrograde and you don't have a religion, you'll end up with one. Okay, it's a delay, but you'll get a religion. I've seen it over and over again. In Vedic astrology, that's an acknowledgement for sure. That's one of the ways they read a Jupiter retrograde. Now, one of the things about this Jupiter retrograde in the chart of Kennedy is you can see that real-time sky Jupiter, as of July 30th, when I'm recording, is approaching his natal Jupiter. And this is a Jupiter return, and we'll cast the chart. And a Jupiter return gives you the lay of the land for the next 12 years of your life. And there's lots of cool ways to read it, but I will pull that chart up for us. But just knowing that Jupiter is crossing Jupiter, it's double your luck, double your four-leaf clover, double the horseshoes up your butt. Take your pick, Midas touch if you like. This is the house of public recognition and celebrity, great gains from one's career, the amplification and success of getting one's dreams and goals and wishes created and made. Jupiter in his joy is strong in the Hellenistic tradition in the 11th house. So we like this good spirit house, and here comes the return of Jupiter to Jupiter in the chart of a man who is out there campaigning like crazy on funds that may have been donated from Trump's campaign, but it's too late. He's got them now. 17 degrees and 17 degrees. We're seeing it happen pretty close to around August the 15th. What is happening in the time frame of August 15th, give or take a few days after? It's the Democratic National Convention. Now, it seems like Kamala is a slam dunk. I don't think there's going to be any contestation of that, but we also have a difficult sky at the same time, in which that Mars-Jupiter conjunction, last seen in 1989 in the sign of Gemini tropical zodiac, is happening again. It would be prudent to ask ourselves what was going on in the life of Robert Kennedy Jr. in 1989 when he experienced this conjunction in Gemini. And I'll take a quick peek at that news cycle in a second. This simply says a massive energy is hitting him around the middle of the month as he opens into this time of great success here, the 16th, 17th, and it's coming off the exact conjunction of Jupiter and Mars at 16 degrees. This is highly auspicious for Robert Kennedy Jr. This is gung-ho, confidence, bold, ambitious energy. This is big seize the day energy, Mars and Jupiter combining forces on his natal Jupiter, sextiling his midheaven. That is a critical part of it. Sextiling his midheaven, opening up opportunity. Now, a lot of people thought he was going to take a job with Trump. That Trump said, look, throw your endorsement my way, and maybe I'll give you a job as, the Secretary of Health in the country of the United States of America. I just listened to an interview on a major news channel where he talked about that phone call and said, no, he would not take a job with Trump by throwing his vote, like the people who follow him and saying, I endorse Trump. He said no. So we know that he said no on a major news channel. So that's not what he's up to. So this is not about the job that he hopes to get with, Trump. This is something else. So what is it? It looks like success. It has all the hallmarks of success. Now, Pluto is retrograding in his seventh house. Just so you know, this is also happening for Donald Trump. And I said for Donald Trump, big money will follow him. He's going to get big, successful, famous billionaires throwing money at him. That was in one or two of my videos, is exactly what happened. Elon Musk and Metaverse guy, whatever, Meta, Zuckerberg are throwing money at Trump. Just breaking news, right? So wealthy people from his past, retrograde, Trump's known these people before, throwing money into the campaign for Trump is basically what that has done for Donald Trump. What can it do for Robert Kennedy. Well, it could actually be the very similar story. And that's ongoing right now and has been ongoing as Pluto has been here for quite a while and in retrogradation as well for several months, meaning that perhaps what we're seeing here is just both Trump and RFK have been getting lots of wealthy donors in the house of significant others who support your 10th house of career. 7th house is 10 houses from the 10th house, people who support the categoric 10th house of career of Robert Kennedy. By the way, he is super into the health stuff, right? The vaccine safety movement. And you can see he has Hygeia, the goddess of, like medicine, health matters. With Uranus, breaking the rules, being the outsider, flying a freak flag of all vaccines aren't safe, guys, and follow the money. Who got rich on the COVID vaccine? That's some of the stuff he's about. And this is on the South Node in the 12th house, could be past lives. I'd say that you're looking at a man who's done this kind of work, championing radical breakthroughs in health in other lifetimes, right? In other lifetimes. All right, so where I was going to go next is that Jupiter will retrograde during the election process and not make it, unfortunately, not make it all the way to the connection, or fortunately, of Harris's ascendant, far from Harris's ascendant, actually, or Trump's sun, closer to Trump's sun. So let me show you what I mean. Let's keep moving. I don't want to put them out here, Trump, and I'm just going to tell you, watch the movement of Jupiter. This is not complicated. We're going to move Jupiter forward and he's going to go retrograde, which is something Jupiter does, as a part of the celestial motion of the heavens from our perspective on Earth. Appears to go backwards, and we're going to keep watching as this happens. We're approaching September 25th. I'm just going fast. And now we're coming into the October, and here we have it. Now, Jupiter stations retrograde here around October the 9th at 21 degrees of Gemini. He's well past Jupiter, right, that belongs to RFK, and will indeed go back over RFK's Jupiter, giving him another coronation, So we've got the August 15th Jupiter over his Jupiter, and then we're going to have Jupiter returning over his Jupiter. In the meantime, what happens with Harris and what happened with 24 degrees ascendant, and what happens with Trump with, 21 degrees ascendant? 22 degrees for Trump is by minutes, hairbreadth minutes. It doesn't perfect. It's possible that both candidates look like they're losing or don't make the win, or there's some late hanging Chad, 2000 Gore Bush kind of kerfuffle, and because it's going to take a while for this election maybe to be sorted out. We have a retrograde Jupiter. We have a lot of gnarly action going on from Mars. It doesn't look simple, nor does it look easy. And it's possible because the Jupiter connection to Trump's sun is very close, only by minutes, that he may be the de facto coronated winner, but with a dispute from the Democrats. But some kind of complication is going on. Now, if we keep Jupiter moving forward, he will come back over. Hope you can watch this Jupiter up here. He'll come back over the energy field. Oh, let's keep going. There we go. 19. Where am I? How did I end up there? Yeah, hang on. There we go. Back over Jupiter conjunct Jupiter in Robert Kennedy's chart, Jupiter retrograde, November the 27th. So now August 15th, November 27th, he's getting Jupiter's blessings. What could it mean? Because it says that the third pass. Now, I don't think with 29 states on the ballot, he has 29 states in which his new party, We the People, is on the ballot. I don't think he wins the election. It can't happen, I don't think. He will have potentially 392 electoral votes. He needs 270, if I remember correctly, the right number. So if he won all 29 states, or like almost all of them, he could indeed win the election and be the next president. That is so far-fetched. I don't think that's what we're seeing. But we can see that even going further into April 9th of 2025, he gets the third pass of Jupiter on Jupiter sextiling his midheaven. End of story. Whatever he's doing very well. And he's got Pluto on his descendant, ascendant axis through all of next year. Holy man, the guy's powering up on steroids. What is he powering up for? I have no idea. Maybe he disrupts the election. Finally, a candidate, Democratic or Republican, does finally win, and he gets a major role in that party's cabinet, secretary of likely health or something like that. So he can win or something. Any thoughts in the comments about what this might mean? I welcome your thoughts and expertise, everybody. Now, there's a lot going on in his chart, and I'm going to show one more thing here to do with another part of astrology. I want to talk about his profection age, right? Pro. I have to hear astrologers say perfection age. You're not perfecting. Move forward, profection, Profection, an ancient Hellenistic tool. Every single age of your life is connected to a house in your chart, and it repeats, So like sweet 16 is your fifth house of romantic love. Well, it's going to repeat 12 years later, right? So 16, 28, house of romantic love, fertility, pregnancy, age 40, and it goes on and on. That age is always the same age. It's your fifth house age repeating itself. Ages 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, your first house in your natal chart age, whole sign, first house. Use whole signs, make it simple, make it useful. Don't know how to cast your chart in whole sign houses? Check my description box below. I've taught a class on the perfection, how to use perfections, annual perfections. It's for sale. On my teaching site, go to look below and you'll get access to all my course replays, and you can go buy that for yourself. It's affordable, probably $19. So the thing I want to say is that he's in a positive profection age. He is 70 years old as of January of this year. And we're going to discuss how that looks in the sky in terms of an auspicious energy, perhaps, because the 10th house is your career and reputation at the top of the sky, where you can be seen in the world and recognized and ambitious and successful and focused on those things. So let's take a look at that in his chart right now and see, does this bode well? How will he impact the election based on his profection age? Okay, so we're going to look at his chart, and I meant to say his 11th house. Sorry about that, guys. Me and math on the fly. Yeah, he's in his 11th house profection age because he just turned 70, 71, 72. Okay, 72 is first house age. 70 is here. So we have him in a powerful spot, connected to Jupiter in the house of his joy. He crossed the fence and walked into this part of his sky on his birthday, or in the whole month of January, actually, the way I do it. And he's been wandering through this part of the heavens ever since. Roughly speaking, if you play with the math, this is a year-long journey through this 11th house, right? And if you go halfway through the journey, you're going to be at 15 degrees. And ostensibly, the 15th degree mark, right, is going to be 6 months into the narrative, which is the month of July. Well, April, May, June, July. January, February, March, April, May, June. Well, it's June, but his 17-degree Jupiter is kind of like July. So this is representing the month of July, where he kind of bumps into his natal Jupiter. So he's really in a place of power, of kingship, of luck, of expansion, of growth, of expansion of celebrity or publicity. For the 11th house can indicate those things, where his movement may grow or not grow. I don't know, but he's in the energy field of that. If I just take this space and make the midpoint somewhere around the summertime. In the meantime, the other energy is what? It's Gemini. He's ruled by Mercury. This is a Mercury-ruled age for Robert Kennedy. The Time Lord of his age is Mercury. And if you look at Mercury in his natal chart, you will get some ideas of what is going on. It's about work, natally, service. It's about son, father, but also career. So the energy here is about what he wants to do as work and service and career. 29 anaretic Mercury is also indicative of some fame or name recognition in this life. Of course, he has both of those things. I've added some asteroids, but I want to continue with this profection age idea. In general, 11th house profection ages are considered to be positive, and we do have positive things happen to us. And if you were looking at this for yourself, and if I had more time, I go back and look at all of his profection ages every 12 years back in time to see how he has fared. But understanding with Jupiter sextiling his midheaven in this profection age, he receives that energy of Jupiter, and he also is in the middle of a 12-year Jupiter return cycle. We'll cast the last of the Jupiter return charts, perhaps, because they'll have three, because Jupiter crosses Jupiter 3 times in a row. But one of the other things I want to mention about a Mercury ruled age as a Time Lord, it's not just what Mercury does by where it sits, its disposition in the chart. It's also what Mercury in the sky is doing in the heavens during the time in which he's living through his profection age ruled by Mercury. In Gary Caton, Mercury astrologer expert's opinion, we're in an elemental fire age, fire year for Mercury. And that's because Mercury spent a long time in the spring in the sign of Aries, is about to retrograde from Virgo on the 5th of August and go back into Leo. And we'll spend a lot of time then coming back from Leo, I think around 21 degrees at the end of the month. And so there's a lot of emphasis on Leo, as Mercury, the Time Lord of Robert Kennedy's age, is highly active as we speak. And you will also note that the next fire sign is Sag, and this is our November timeframe where Mercury will be spending a long time here. So he's got all this fire in his chart activated. Houses 9, 1, 5. What does those houses mean? Dharma houses. The triad of purpose, the triad of significance, the triad of one's life's meaning. We add the midheaven, God's plan for his life, and it's even more intense. So we see at this point that he's in a very important year for him, ruled by a fire Mercury, energetic, because Mercury is spending a lot of weeks in fire signs because of fire sign retrogradation. So we have to factor that into the narrative as well. Don't forget, the retrogradation here doesn't mean a bad thing. And people misunderstand it. Mercury goes back over old ground from August the 5th, where he will be in early degrees of Virgo. And then he will cross in mid-August back into Leo and trundle back, to 21 degrees and then move forward. My Mercury video is either just out or will be coming out as you're watching this video. And my feeling is that this isn't bad for at all for Robert Kennedy, partly because it's worse for Donald Trump. Because for Donald Trump, this Mercury retrograde will go over his ascendant, and it's probably Trump making a change of mind about something. Maybe J.D. Vance, because he's getting in trouble about the Catwoman and all of that. And J.D. Vance does not give him an electoral college value add for Ohio, which the Republicans would have won anyway. So with a retrograde Mercury crossing from the second house into Trump's first house, we're going to see maybe Trump change his mind about something he's already announced. Second house's speech. I announced Vance, J.D. Vance is my running mate. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't pick Tulsi Gabbard. I've been talking Tulsi Gabbard. People say, well, you were wrong. It was J.D. Vance. I still see Tulsi Gabbard as a high profile energy vis-a-vis Trump. Okay. Vance and Trump have a conjunction between Trump's Venus and Vance's Mars. They really are like hot romantic intensity together. They like each other, the bromance energy. Problem is that may not be the best pick for him. And Elon Musk apparently was pressuring Trump, as well as another guy to pick, as well as his sons to pick J.D. Vance. So lastly, I'd say the retrogradation over Trump's ascendant would indicate a possibility of Mercury saying, you make a decision to change your mind. It's okay, about something you voiced into being, the Virgo place where Mercury starts his retrograde. And why he might pick Tulsi Gabbard is because right now the perception of the machismo, maybe misogynistic, anti-feminine stance of the Republican Party, with two kind of MAGA hats in there, right? Trump and Vance, is losing the female vote if they're going to get any swing votes. And so putting a woman in there, given Kamala is on the other side, would be a good idea. So we'll see. Moving into the next part of the story. His perfection age when he was 9 years old. I want to talk about that. And when he was 14 years old. And that's simply important in just understanding the man himself. Who is he and what is he about? I've added some asteroids for flavor. He comes from Ixion, the one who murdered his father-in-law and then later tried to seduce the centaur, seduce the wife of Hera, and then was put on a spinning wheel to be tortured and spun for, as punishment by Zeus for the rest of his days, kind of thing. But I would just say it's a story of Greek mythology that involves murder, right? Murder. And the IC represents the root of the ancestral line. And that is, of course, meaningful because his own father was murdered as well as his uncle. So we have ancestral murders in the narrative. And it is worth noting that's a part of his soul's code to come into incarnation and find roots of murder in the ancestral narrative. It would have preceded his uncle, preceded his father. There will be other stories up the Kennedy line, maybe lost to the mists of time with that narrative. With the asteroid America on his IC, that ancestral family roots are all about the America, North America. God bless America. The asteroid looks like the dollar bill. The Masons created that picture. Well, you know what I mean, right? So there's American ethos, ancestral, all, you know, all American Catholic family connected to murder. That's a story. It's right there. And the Grim Reaperess is here too. So she often reaps like a murderess too. Sorry, guys. It's not just about agriculture, not in real charts I've read. When we look at the asteroid here, this is the asteroid, just so you know, Asclepius on Saturn. That's his interest in health. Asclepius is about medicine, health, and health matters on Saturn and Mars in the fourth house of his chart. And it's just a part of his soul's code, right? That's exactly what that means. Keep in mind, there's lots going on here about his childhood that was very difficult. We won't go into that today. We don't have time. Alcoholism in his childhood could be Neptune, but the Mars, Saturn, lonely, a difficulty, maybe nannies or pairs, I don't know, isolation as a child, combat or difficult conflicts in the home. These are wanting to run away from home. This is his childhood in essence. It wasn't necessarily easy to have a high profile political family to be born into that. Let's say that. He wants to dispense wisdom and knowledge into the world. He's got Minerva on the descendant, representing what he wants to push out into the world of other people, wisdom and knowledge, basically. And that's Apollo. Leaders and leadership energy is in his seventh house. He may look at himself as somebody who wants to also align with other leaders, right? With Apollo here as well. And there's the Profection age story that I wanted to talk about when he was little. When he was a little guy and he was 9 years old, he would be here 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. There he is. When he's 9 years old, he's in his 10th house age, and his uncle is assassinated, right? RFK. I mean, John F.K., JFK is assassinated. He's ruled by Venus. Venus is in the house of karmic relationships and service. Venus is on the North Node of fate. And in essence, he's just experiencing this as a very public event, very possibly connected to the fact he had to go publicly to funerals. And there was a lot of public stuff that he attended with his family around the death of his uncle. But I want you to bring this up because he's informed by a childhood of sudden loss and death. And he's quite aware that these deaths did not occur by the apparent patsies, right? So one of the theories about his dad running for the presidential race in 1968 and assassinated, that his father, Robert, wanted to actually be able to uncover the roots of who killed his father, with the suspicion it was the CIA. And so therefore, rather than have him come to term as a president and win the election, which he may have, instead of Nixon later, the Republicans, they basically killed him so that couldn't happen. Okay, just a thought, right? It's in the chatter. It's not just me. And so there is this feeling that he may carry with him of the rotten, evil, nefarious three-letter agencies, the deep state, and the fact that there is deep corruption within the governments. He can avoid it. He's a part of the history of that story. When he was 14 years old, his own father was killed. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Here he is in his third house profection age with the murderer Ixion, right? The famous murderer Ixion, who killed his father-in-law. So the killing of a father-in-law murder story is active when his own father is murdered when he is 14 years old. And we also see the asteroid America. His father was running for the presidency, but we see Neptune. And we know, therefore, that his father's death was not as it seemed. The murder of his father was confusing. It was shrouded in fog. This is Neptune type of murder, secrets, manipulation, and spin cycles. Somehow there is not what meets the eye about the way his father was killed. But he was 14 years old, again ruled by Venus. The murder of his uncle, JFK, and the murder of his own father, Libra, third house, connects him to Venus in his chart. This gives Venus a role in these very intense losses in his life. Venus is conjunct the sun, father figures, my uncle, the president of the United States, and my father in the sixth house in a very karmic area of the chart. So I want to remember that truth here, because this is a man running for office, coming out of an iconic family who experienced tragic loss as political forces opposed the agenda of this family. So I would leave that with you, because RFK may be a spoiler this time. He may be the one who ruins the pure and clean election results by third-party depletion of votes from the ability of Harris or Trump to have a clean win. The most intense thing that could happen in this election year would be, of course, that he actually manages to capture some votes from a swing state that don't allow either Biden or Trump to get 270 votes, and then there's a draw. Now, there is a whole process that you must go through. It's in the Constitution in order to choose a winner if there is no one who crosses the 270 votes line. It's complicated. I read about it with my partner. It would require that the Senate do a vote, and also that the Congress, each state would have a vote. But you have to get a consensus amongst the congressional representatives for each state to choose which party, Harris or Trump, to go for. It's a hot mess. It could stall the election forever. Like, it could be months before it's sorted. That would be intense. I'm saying it here and now that that's a possibility in the story of the future. And I'm recording on July 30th, 2025 for posterity. Okay, guys, and that's my feeling. I think he's a karmic element for the soul of America, so to speak. United States of America is a Sagittarius rising right here, a descendant here, right? This is the U.S. chart, right there. This puts, for Robert Kennedy Jr., this puts his natal ascendant and his, identity in this lifetime, right? In the ninth house, truth, justice, and wisdom, Dharma of the United States of America. And it puts his natal sun in the second house of the United States of America, which is the money house, the place where we have the financial and economic stories taking place. And that's what his sun is in there. And he talks a lot in his interviews about the moneyed corruption of the process of democracy by the wealthy influencers, the donor class, and the lobbyists. And so it's very possible that his service in this lifetime to America, 27 degrees, right? His Mercury is in a very tight relationship to the asteroid America in his third house, in a square, meaning cardinal square, meaning that maybe his service in this world is to clean up the financial interference in the true democratic process in the United States of America, which has become a process of who has the money has the votes, right? And that your votes are bought because the senators and or the congressmen who are given the lobby fund money or the money from very rich donors, etc., basically ask those senators and congressmen to vote a certain way about the environment, about war policy, about everything. And so what you want as the little guy down there in your republic that has a pretend democracy. It's a republic, not a democracy. You're the country of the United States. I'm Canadian. The little guys don't get their votes counting anymore. It has no meaning. It's like, your vote isn't your vote. What you want isn't, during the Gaza, there were like 60% of Americans thought Joe Biden was too old to run. 60 something percent, 70% were leaning towards get this Gaza war thing over already. Big votes, both sides of the aisle, doesn't matter. there's lobbyists who fund gun money and the machinery of the military industrial complex, and the senators and the congressmen who somehow know when to sell a stock just in the nick of time or buy a stock based on what's going on behind the scenes. It's very, very dirty money, very corrupt at this point, very bought policies are purchased by the rich or the donor class, and the little guy is no longer has a say in what's going on. Therefore, my final word about RFK Jr. is he's a disruptor and a spoiler. And if he has any ability to bring attention, at very least, to the political donor class problems and money, then this is probably one of his major roles. Now, last but not least, we're moving away from this story, his solar return chart. And I may show you his Jupiter return as well. But Jupiter return is complicated for him. There will be 3 returns, the August 15th return chart, the November 27th return chart, and the April 29th return chart. And each one has its own goodness and meaning in the period between those times, where his final Jupiter return, April 29th, is the one that lasts 12 years. That may be the one if I'm going to look at it with you guys today, I will look at that. All right, let's go ahead and peek at his solar return chart. It's a snapshot of the sky at the time of his birth. When the sun returns to the degree and the minute of where it was in his birth. His solar return chart was January 17th, 2024. It just happens to be on his real birthday. Often a solar return chart will not be on one's real birthday. It will be a day before or after the actual date of the return of the sun to the degree it's set when you were born. Yes, we always cast our solar returns or solar revolution charts for the place of birth. You may cast it for the place you live as a secondary sky that may have meaning, but the core fundamental cake is this chart. And a birth chart and a icing on the cake would be, say he was living in Hawaii at the time of his birthday, we could cast the Hawaii chart. So on his solar return chart, he is coming home to a Leo rising. This is indicating that he is coming back to his reason for being incarnated. Indeed, his Leo rising lion man energy is almost perfectly conjunct his 3-degree Leo ascendant. This makes him extremely on dharmic path purpose. He's aligning with the reason he came to this planet. And anytime your solar returns you to your ascendant sign again, it's the same thing. It's an alignment with one's true north, true purpose for being incarnated. In his solar return chart, we baked in the midheaven at 18 degrees of Aries on the north node with Chiron. That's when the eclipses were happening here. Remember, it's a nice return to his natal plan for being on the planet, the high noon, the reason he came to be on planet Earth, his plot line, God's plan for his life, so to speak, is in play as it was when he was born. He's fully stamped back into the story of why he incarnated. If he was going to win an election, if he could win an election, you would want Jupiter in the 10th house. You would want that. And the lot of fortune is with Jupiter as well. That makes it a strong sky, guys, for him. It doesn't mean he will win the election, but he's going to come up on the top of the sky looking leaderful, Minerva, wisdom and knowledge, shock and awe. Uranus is there as well. Big surprises about his role in the public eye. Okay, give me a minute. Clear the drawings. I made a hot mess all over that. I apologize. Now, I know a lot of you are learning astrology and you may have some thoughts here, but this is Albion. And the Albion asteroid in his natal chart is in his 7th house near his ascendant. Albion is breaking the rules. It's also conspiracy theories. And it's also looking like wanting to change, like the software will, it's a high hill upon which the giants of ancient Britain once lived. But this delineation is about breaking from the structures, the rules, the way things have always been done. All right. So he's rule breaking from the structures with wisdom and knowledge, shock and awe, Jupiter, wisdom and knowledge, truth at the top of the sky, truth, key Jupiter word, and his lot of fortune. So he's in the heights of positive energy in the top of his sky in this solar return. It is an election year. So we want to say this looks very good on him. Mars exalted in the house of service and work with the sun and Pluto for power and wealth. Not too shabby at all. Yes, Chiron is baking in, as it did during the April 8th eclipse, to his midheaven. Therefore, the wounded career. But is it wounded? I don't know. Chiron was the mentor of healers and heroes. So mentoring the healers of the ancient world may mean he will ultimately, off of what happens this year, come to great power in a medical professional energy. Again, maybe he'll end up being the Secretary for Health in the United States, because that would be a portfolio, or the Secretary of Environment that he would want. Anything else I would say about it? He's able to generate partners in financial gain. Juno in the second house, people partner with him to give him money. Okay, that's basically what that means, flowing to the 10th house. And we've seen him get a ton of donor money to run a campaign under a new party he created called We the People, because the Democratic Party shut him out of any kind of actual process during the buildup to this election, and he was unable to officially compete as a Democrat. So that's what you've got going there. Okay. Is this a good chart for him? Yes. He's ruled by the sun as he was when he was born. The sun, as when he was born, is in the house of service with an exalted Mars. It is a good chart for Robert Kennedy Jr. In January, just after his birthday, Mars rose to the visible sky in the sixth house of his sky, in the sixth house of his chart, indicating a 2-year window ahead of great success in his sixth house matters. But certainly, as this is playing out, it's his ability to be on the job of service, doing some kind of work that is on the rise in 2024. Finally, the last thing I would mention here is this. You can profect, P-R-O-fect, around the sky, and you can say there's many ways to do this. You can profect from the sun, or you can profect from the ascendant. But if we profect from the ascendant in a solar return, this is January, right? This is February. This is March, etc. April, May, June, July. This is July. July, when all the kerfuffle's been happening. Trump was almost assassinated. Biden stepped down. Harris and blank. We don't have her announcement yet who her running mate is. I'll be covering that when it happens. So during the month of July, he's in a Saturn-ruled month, right? Saturn-ruled month, not age, not year. And Saturn is in the house of secrets. So that's an interesting placement, or the house of shared monies with others. And he's just sitting here. Not a lot happening for him, right? Not a lot of turbulence, not any planets in his solar return that he's bumping into. This is the month of August. He's going to step here in the month of August. And we can see that there's health planets here: Hygeia, Asclepia, Neptune, confusion, Neptune, poisoning. I hope he's okay. Saturn, difficulty, hardship. He's going through a difficult time in the month of August, according to this chart, despite the fact that Jupiter is going to conjunct his Jupiter at the same time. There's something going on where he's in a bit of a dark place. The eighth house is like the house of death. The death and rebirth energies are going on, and he's ruled by Jupiter. Now, because Jupiter in his chart is so powerful, and because he's having a Jupiter return anyway, and because Jupiter is conjuncting Jupiter August 15th, it can be a mixed bag. But whatever is going on in the eighth house may also be about money, right? Other people's money. And it doesn't have to be bad. Maybe he's going to get a chunk of support from a major billionaire in the world, and we'll hear about it in the month of August. In the month of September, because it's great gains over here, but allies and benefactors. You see, the 11th house in his natal chart where Jupiter sits is allies and benefactors. And so he may have a very moneyed benefactor coming into the narrative, especially regarding his policies around vaccine safety and health matters, including the environment. We're sick from a dirty environment. And that may be a big story going on in August. Then in the month of September, he's here having some really high noon stuff, but maybe a bit of wound to his reputation or career path, but we'll see. And then in the month of October, he's here. So you can see how strong he is in October. I can, Jupiter, a lot of fortune, Minerva, breaking the rules, shocking surprises regarding Robert Kennedy in the month of October before the election, and also rolling off a Venus-ruled energy. And Venus is in the house of her joy with Asteroid America. And the house of her joy with Asteroid America is a positive placement for her. And finally, we see him here in the month of November. This is November, his 11th house month, where natally has Jupiter. And here he has a Vestal flame, a sacred torch. He's ruled by Mercury in the house of service. November for him isn't complicated. There's not a bunch of terrible things happening, right? So November looks interestingly neutral just by virtue of not a lot happening in that 11th house, but that sacred torch, that sacred flame of devotion about something he cares about, right, is looking across the way at his Venus in Sagittarius and the asteroid America. And that can be an American female celebrity, American leader in power, American energy. If Kamala Harris is in the mix, for example, it could be her, or if Tulsi Gabbard becomes in the mix, it could be her. And he's able to sort of maybe, although it's an opposition, dialogue with such a person in the month of November in the aftermath of the complicated election. Alrighty, and we're also going to take a quick peek. I'm not going to do a Jupiter return. It's going to be too complicated astrologically. At two more things. It's called his solar arc chart. And then I'll take a quick sneak peek at his zodiacal releasing. Sorry, guys, you asked for it. So far, I'm going with this. He's a disruptor in the election. He's going to be a spoiler. He's going to make this a very complicated election. That's what I'm thinking I'm seeing here. Solar arc time is the idea of Helios, the charioteer of the sun, carrying the sun across the sky. And mythologically, it means that the sun moves across the sky and all the other planets trail after it, like Santa Claus and his reindeer, I guess, trail after it by 1 degree a year. On average, it's not quite. Software gives you the precision of it, but in average, it's like a degree a year. It loses the precision as you approach, post age 40, 35, 40, but the gist is there. And software gives us precision. What I love about his solar return is where his natal Jupiter has progressed to. Let's go there and talk about it. And he's got a lot of power. And I just can't see him winning the election, though, but I can see he's got a lot of power. He has got his natal Jupiter in progression from his natal chart, right? It has moved from 17 degrees of Gemini to 28 Leo. Does anybody know in the comments what sits at 28 Leo? Number one, Donald Trump's ascendant is at 29. So his Jupiter on Donald Trump's ascendant means, yes, he could end up with a position in the Trump administration for sure. Number two, or he could throw his votes towards Trump. Number two, it's the fixed star Regulus, little king, fame, riches, glory, and power. His Jupiter is sitting on Regulus by progression in his first house, right? In the house of his identity. The 28th degree is the household name degree. So he's a household name because of the election, because some people didn't know who he was. And he's now ascending to Jupiterian king-like leader power in the world, connected to that star, but ironically sitting with Trump's ascendant as well. So Trump he told someone publicly on a newscast that he had talked to Trump more than once about vaccine safety well before this election, and even back when Trump was in power. So there is this history between them of vaccine safety, and Trump saying, "Yeah, I agree with you. Let's work on it." So this can be an indication, maybe if Trump was to win, that there would be a role for RFK in Trump's administration, even if he doesn't throw his endorsement Trump's way. Second of all, the power of the solar arcs, I call it God's clock, cannot be overestimated. His midheaven has changed its place. His midheaven had been traveling for the last 30 years through the sign of Gemini here. Now it's in the sign of Cancer. This is a whole different ballgame for how this soul's purpose and his direction in life is meant to unfold. And assuming our birth time is somewhat accurate, and it is debatable, but if we go with the accurate birth time, now he has a purpose in life, and it is ruled by the moon, no longer ruled by the messenger, communicator, ideator, Mercury. Instead, the ruler of his midheaven is his natal moon in Cancer. Does anyone know what sits at 13 degrees of Cancer? What star is there and what other planets are there? The sun of the United States of America is at 13 Cancer. The fixed star, dog star, Sirius, powerful star for fame and power and success and alchemy and magic and spiritual truth, is on his natal sun in his 12th house. And his midheaven is ruled by that moon. His prominence in American politics is about to increase over the next 13 years as that midheaven approaches. And yes, that takes him to 83 or 84 years old. This guy is going to continue to have great influence, maybe from behind the scenes, backroom deals and negotiations about health matters, Hygeia. He'll be a force to be reckoned with in the American political and health scene over the next few years. Now, what else is happening in his chart regarding themes that could be connected to success or disruption of the upcoming election? And I took some of the minor asteroids out, guys, just because it was a lot going on there. So we didn't need everybody in there. So I'm just staring at the sky, you know, I'm looking at what draws my eyeballs. His ninth house is where his midheaven sits, and that is, of course, his main focus in a very ninth house midheaven people. They care about the world. They're humanitarian. They want to do something meaningful. That's ninth house midheaven in a nutshell. Look how many planets are here at this ripe old age of 70. Look what's going on. A stellium, Chiron, the noble mentor of heroes and heroes in the world. His destiny, North Node. This is all moved from the sixth house, right? When now it's all trundling forward. The sun, his solar light shining at the top of the sky, high noon, midheaven. Mercury, the messenger, the descendant, bringing other people into the high noon of his sky, and the lot of fortune here at 27. So there's just a concentration of energy up there is what I'm trying to point to. And only 3 years ago did Chiron enter the fray, right? And only in 3 years from now will a lot of fortune leave the story. Okay, so next 3 years, he's concentrated power of super energy around his escalation of prominence in the world of some kind. And I don't want to get into his personal life here because I can see personal life stories and it's not relevant to what we're doing today. So Asteroid America progressed from his, the murderous family ancestral history part of his story to Asteroid America now at 8 degrees of the sign of Capricorn. And 8 degrees, if I was to look around the chart just for fun and remind myself who that asteroid might be talking to, maybe nobody. Well, in 5 years, Asteroid America will oppose his lunation, his moon. So we'll just leave that thought. I wonder what that could be about, as well as Neptune getting closer to that as well. 8 years ago, Asteroid America entered his house of service, work as service, and Neptune entered there 6 years ago. And that may be the vaccine stuff and things to do with Neptune rules viruses, right? So virus remediation. So he got into the COVID storyline big time and was talking about how the vaccines may not be safe or effective and big money was running the show and we need to look at the science, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So what else do we have to say? He's not an anti-vaccine, by the way. He's vaccine safety. There's a big difference there. I just want to point that out. All right. I dated a guy who worked with Ted Kennedy on vaccine policy and is a well-known physician for one of the things he created to do with infant febrile stuff. Bottom line is he agrees that the vaccine safety is a field that has not been thoroughly investigated, or there are no protocols for safety because people do have vaccine reactions, even to ordinary vaccines. My daughter is one of them, was vaccine damaged by the measles vaccine. So we do have vaccine damage. It is a thing. And for Kennedy to be about that looks to me a lot to do with what's going on with the movement of Neptune and the America thing into the house of service. Okay, so we'll just pause and ponder that thought. Yep, going with it. All right, guys, that's about that. And if we're going to do anything else, it's just zodiacal releasing. We go through peak periods in our lives, and you can call them the book, the chapter, the paragraph, the sentence. I think of them as nested Russian dolls. It has to do with Time Lords and Time Lord time frames. It's an ancient tool. I'm not going to show you the zodiacal releasing because my software, I don't know how, unless I do a screenshot of the chart, which I could probably do, to show you the zodiacal releasing. But rather, I'll just tell you what I see, and we'll finish up this this way too long video. If you like this kind of content, explaining why I say he's rising in prominence, he's going to be more successful, he's like going into a greater period of power, he may be the spoiler disruptor. If Trump wins, he may be a part of Trump's administration. That's where I'm going, okay? Now, what I am looking at is his zodiacal releasing periods, and I want to know if he's in a weak time, a karmic releasing time, a time that's auspicious, or a time that is inauspicious. His major zodiacal releasing of the lot of fortune, which I could use a lot of spirit, but the lot of fortune I find for the political scene is pretty powerful. He's now in a time frame. He's born with a lot of fortune in Aquarius, right? So he does care about we the people. Cannot believe he called his thing we the people. Aquarius is we the people. Anyway, so he's bought his seventh house of audience, marketplace, and others is where his lot of fortune is in his natal chart in Aquarius, in Leo rising. And when he was only 29 years old, his lot of fortune migrated by progression into his eighth house. And then when he was 41, it migrated into his career space, 41 to 56, lot of fortune in his 10th house, ninth house, where the midheavens is in Aries. But then when he turned 56 years old, in March of 2010, the lot of fortune moved into his 10th house of public reputation, very visible, categorical. Everyone look at me, look what I'm doing. And it has been there since he is 56 years old in Taurus at the top of his sky. He's now ruled by Venus in his chart. Venus is in the sixth house of how he's here to do service, conjunct Sun, right? Connected to father and purpose. So he's moved into a more of a father-centric orientation about his career at the age of 58. And that was in play until he was 64 years old. And then in 2018, his lot of fortune moved into the sign of Gemini, which is where his Jupiter is, Jupiter king and leader, movement maker. He wants to be a movement maker at the age of 64. Starting in February of 2018, he became more of a movement maker as the pandemic hit and became a very vocal advocate for vaccine safety and more, and environmental wellness. So he's a movement maker now, and that's what his lot of fortune is doing, ruled by Mercury in his sixth house of service natally. That's the backdrop of the story, just giving you the gist of it. Okay, he's not in a peak period. Peak period was him between 56 and 64. This is not a peak period because this period is not angular, okay, square to angular to his lot of fortune in his natal chart. So he's not in a peak period, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't mean things will go poorly. It just means that's not one of the major individual factors in the book level 1 story. So track with me if you can do so. As this election approaches, he is in a Virgo-ruled section of the sky, the chapter that's ruled by the Mercury in his chart, the messenger in his natal sixth house. So okay, remember that he's born here to be of great service according to his chart. And that's what that he would be doing with the Mercury storyline. But also, this is the time from May of 2023 to January 4th of 2025. All right, where he is ruled by Mercury in general. So there's a lot to do with Mercury going on for him right now. And his Mercury in Capricorn in his sixth house is in that place of where he's meant to be of service. So we'll just keep that thought in mind, not a peak period, not a weak period, just a period. End of story. When we move to the level 3 zodiacal releasing periods for him and the election approaches, it's interesting. Between September 6th and October 24th, he's in a peak period. So he's gaining momentum in Leo. He's the king. He's the leader. He's first house peak energy, momentum. September 6th to October 24th, all eyes on Robert Kennedy Jr. You will see some escalation of profile success during that window of time, ruled by the sun in his sixth house. And that's conjunct Pluto, power. And as we move forward then from October 24th to the November 23rd, and we are now in election territory, right? The November 5th election, he's moving into a period of zodiacal releasing, a releasing of a karmic knot. It is a karmic knot connected to the planet Jupiter in his natal chart. Holy man. Let me sit with that for a second. It's connected to his Pisces 8th house. Okay, so that's auspiciously interesting. when we release something, zodiacal releasing, we often have a breakthrough of some kind. Something shifts, something breaks through, something that was constricting us releases itself. And that window of time, September through November during the election, I just outlined October through November, is going to activate Jupiter in his chart, which is that Jupiter who's powerfully placed as a movement maker and is having a Jupiter return and is being transited by natal, the sky Jupiter. And this is his eighth house. His eighth house is empty. He's got nothing in it natally. He doesn't have a lot of deep, dark secrets, but it's most karmatic house. So there's a lot of intensity there, but a lot of interesting shift for him during that window of time during the election as that zodiacal releasing of the lot of fortune is taking place. Now, one thing I can mention about that for those of you who are learning a more deep dives of astrology, there's a thing when you have a zodiacal releasing that you may have a forerunner, foreshadow, eerie echo of the future from the past. So while the zodiacal releasing in level 3 is occurring for him in his lot of fortune, October the 24th to November the 23rd, you may go back to what was happening in RFK's life February 19th of 2024 to March 20th, because events February 24th to March 20th are indicative of what will be replaying in a more profound way. To do with being a movement maker, to do with being a leader, Jupiter. I know he was in the run-up for the election, but maybe it's when he stepped away and created his own part. We the People Party. I think he created the We the People Party in that run-up. Please, someone in the comments, can you check that out for me? Because we're trying to connect October 24th, 2024 to November 23rd, 2024, to what was going on in his life February 19th of this year to March 20th of this year behind us, okay? And finally, at the level 4, which would be like the string of sentences or the smallest nested Russian doll in the narrative, when we approach the actual election period, he's having a peak period in this minor zone ruled by Saturn in Aquarius. The Aquarian part of his sky is 7th house of opponents, adversaries, or audience marketplace, or business partners. He's having a micro peak period, August 24th to the 31st. It could look like a new donor, a new ally, someone wants to give him money. It could look like it's a peak period, some intensity around 7th house matters, including opponents, August the 24th to August the 31st. And just during the actual election, November the 5th, in his level 4, he will be in the actual election day. Well, first of all, he does have another peak period at level 4, October the 29th to the 31st. Micro peak period in Taurus, his 10th house of career and reputation, ruled by Venus in his 6th house. Wow. So that is an interesting time. He's really getting a nice bump, October 29th, just around Halloween to October 31st. Wow. Just before the election. Yikes. And then on the election, so November the 4th, he moves into a lunar ruled Cancer, November 4th to November 9th period. It's not a peak period, but it is important because his moon is on the dog star and the sun of the United States of America in the backroom deals and negotiations house. And then on November 9th to November 13th, he's in a peak period in Leo. And after the election, he's also in a peak period between November 9th and the 13th. Does he have some cards he can play? Like, did he win a state? And he's got these what do you call it? Points, right? 270, you need 270 seats to win the election. And he's got a chunk that he can donate to Trump or donate to Kamala. I don't even know if you can do that, actually. But I'm saying he looks like he's in a great deal of power as this election is happening for some reason. So, well, a lot of you asked me to do this, and I was like, yeah. Thank you for asking me to follow up on this guy, because he looks like he's a game player in this election, and he has significant intensity around how his presence has a significant influence in this election. He is a spoiler in this election, a disruptor. He's rising to prominence and power, and he may be the one who influences ultimately which party will win this election. He may almost be like the one who gets to choose, if that is even possible, by throwing his weight to the left or the right Okay, so we'll see how that goes. Thank you for listening. That was my take on Robert Kennedy Jr. and how he may play a role in the United States of America 2024 hellish election process. Take care, everybody.